All right. What's up, guy? My name's Ramirez. Yeah, Ramirez, FrogBear.zil. Decided to make a video and call it Social Paradigms Analysis, Destiny versus Shneako. I was going over my notes. I was debating. I was debating with myself, if I should make another video. Because my last two, I do consider it pretty fucking weird and shitty to only talk about weird journal stuff. So yeah, I decided to kind of like, shake up the pot a little bit. Let's see, open up my Telegram group. Yeah, I wanted to talk social paradigms because this conversation really stuck with me, where Destiny had done this Monica Lewinsky tactics where he essentially took all of the popular arguments that Shneako is familiar with, being a part of the red pill community, being a part of the semi-woke political community. Destiny forms his entire rhetoric into demeaning Shneako the way that the right demeans the left. And it was like classic textbook stuff that it kind of shook me, because I was just like, wow, like you're literally seeing somebody just use a Monica Lewinsky tactic verbatim live in a debate between somebody. And I found it pretty funny because, well, I'll show you because, but before I get there, right, I wanted to talk a bit about the importance of social paradigms and
look at evidence
why it matters what you believe and why it matters what occupies your head, because essentially that will dictate subconsciously certain decisions that you'll make. So I want to use this IRS agents. I'm also going to use, let's see if I set it up correctly. All right, yeah, that's the Shneako debate. I love that freeze frame that I caught, and the Dominion voting video. I don't know if I should start here, but her name was Melissa Carone, Car1 or whatever. Why I always point her out is because of her background, right? She was a single mother of two. She has a criminal background, right? I think she went to federal prison. Not entirely too sure, but there was enough in her backstory that if you were an unsuspecting, like if you were just somebody that did analytics for politics, right? Like let's say voting demographics, and you would look at her background, you would immediately assume that she would be a Democrat, right? And I always found her story so fascinating because she was always upfront with everything that she witnessed from the inside out. But my whole thing was, she was hired by a third-party agency that does unemployment hires. So the way I saw it was, if there's anybody that knows people's history and records and a plethora of very sensitive information, it would be one of these third-party agencies that hires other people from, how do I say, outside perspective work, right? So the way I look at it is, they assumed that hiring her with her background, she would be a Democratic, somebody who aligns with Democratic values. And I say this with the Trump hat, and it's even triggering me because I'm not big on the paradigm. I don't believe in the right or the left. I just wear the hat because it triggers people. Like, that's how it started off, but as time went on, things revealed themselves, and you know what I'm saying? Like, it got deep, is what I'm trying to say. But what you'll see between the Destiny and Shneako debate is that you'll have Destiny inflate or conflate various issues in a way that undermines the importance of understanding why he's saying what he's saying. I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now, but actually, let's just play a little bit of it.
More facts to back up my points. I need to have more like concrete evidence to bring forward in a debate. I can't just go based off of like
blah da 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 da.
This is my belief. That's why I constantly. And tell me you believe in the
know that you're not just following
that question back, Desi. Can you process? So
yeah, I want to know how you audit your thoughts. How do you know that you're not just following somebody blindly into some dumb shit?
because I don't.
How do you know you're not following somebody to some blind shit, right? The whole premise is that how do you know that your ideas are vetted? I kind of want to do this to the hat now. I'm a big Trump hat. Like, I'll put Trump underneath here, but this bill, I only like striped bill. No offense, I like straight bill hats, right? Like, it might be because I'm from a city, it might be because I'm from LA, but wearing the hat like that kind of triggers me a little. It feels like I'm wearing a baseball cap. Like, I'm not. The size of the hat is all wrong, and now I have to wear it. Okay, whatever. Let's see. How do you audit your thoughts, and how do you know that what you believe is correct? Right? And this question comes up with the topic of the mask. And it's kind of like the dumbest shit I've ever seen for Destiny, this dumb fucking idiot, to ask him, how do you know that what you know is vetted and trusted? It's like him asking, are you sure you're trusting the science? Are you sure you're trusting the institution? Are you sure you're trusting the authoritative figures that created our understanding of the entire world? It's like, dude, you're leaning on science. You do realize like 80 to 60% of all scientific journals as of this point are not correct. Most of them, you can't even recreate the experiment. So it's kind of like you got faulty science relying on other faulty science, relying on other faulty science. And then you have this entire like nature between these scientists who eventually will climb the ranks in these institutions, who will backstab each other, steal each other's research. And then you have corporations that'll fund entire scientists, but the moment that they're done with the research, they'll just take it all and then file it themselves as if the company or whatever .org was the one that initially created it. Like, there's so much that just irks me with Destiny, but we're going to keep moving because this is not the argument that I wanted to focus on.
Don't follow anybody blindly.
Go ask him about
the
like, oh, how do you, oh.
Go.
I'm
telling you, if there is a shepherd and he says all the sheep go left, you can either choose your own path or you can go right because he told you to go left. You understand? You're being justice controlled, right?
So who's controlling me?
The people that you don't like. When you do the opposite of what they say.
Sneako tossed that question on, so who's controlling me? Because Sneako had said, well, if the news tells me something, I'm going to do the exact opposite of what the news just said. And Destiny was like, well, don't you know that you're just being justice controlled? While he's not wrong, at the same time, he's completely avoiding the... How do I say? Oh, man, I'm not pushed to talk right now. I'm an idiot. I'm all pushing the button. It gets into the whole issue of, because I say the same shit. If the news says it, I'll do the exact opposite, right? So like when the news was saying buy Bitcoin or buy Ethereum or buy cryptocurrency, what did I do? I immediately started selling it. And what happened right after? It's almost like there's this double speech going on where even people do it. Well, they'll say one thing, but they'll mean a completely entirely different thing. And it's just like, what are you entirely motivated by? Like, what?
Say they have just as much control over you as they do
over
other people.
My whole life I've not been wearing a mask, so I'm just going to continue.
Well, I'm asking you a question.
That's
how do you
not
determine
anybody?
You are. I'm asking you a question. How do you determine whether or not you should wear a mask?
And I can answer that question because that's the question I initially wanted. That was the first question I wanted to answer from this specific video. Okay, this gets into my past, so I haven't done this in like forever, and I don't plan on doing this anytime in the future. But when I was in college, right, saying this with the Trump hat on, when I was in college, I used to make keef. I used to know people that taught me how to make not just forms of hash, but they also taught me how to make concentrates. And, you know, there's a variety of level of concentrates. There's a variety of different distilling techniques in order for you to extract the isotopes from the weed plants, There's a variety of ways of exciting them, I can go into it, but that's not what I'm here for. What I'm here for is describing to you the process of making hashish. Now, there's a reason why. It's because you need fabric. And when you're using these fabrics, you're learning that fabrics have different size holes inside of each fabric. The finer, the more refined the piece of hashish that you're trying to make, the smaller and smaller you have to keep sifting. So, right, if you go to the internet, they have these things called sifting bags. And sifting bags are used primarily for a variety of different plants in order to sift pollens or sift a variety of different agents that come from plants that allow you to make perfumes, lotions, da 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 da. I can't keep going, but in this example, I'm using hashish, weed, cannabis. So while learning about the refinement process that you have to do here, when you're working a step above hashish, which is more concentrated stuff, you have to be very aware of the environment that you're working in. Very aware. Like specks of dust could cause entire problems in some of these refinement processes, and lighting a lighter in the room can sometimes cause an explosion or something like it. There's a variety of things that could go wrong, right? And one of the things that was very interesting is there was a certain process that if we did when we were breaking the concentrate, we had to wear masks, because if you breathe that in, it would like literally, it's like you're breathing in crystals. It's going to cause a lot of damage going down your throat. So there were aspects that we had to account for, and we knew that certain masks work while other certain masks didn't work. It's why when you're working with fiberglass, you have to wear a very specific mask and a very specific set of goggles, because they're designed in mind with how airflow works, and they're designed to make sure that none of these very small particles can go or penetrate through these fabrics. Follow along, right? The size of fabric, the size of goods that allow for the permeation of air, right? So that means you can assume that there is a size to these particulates, all the way from whatever it takes to make hashish to whatever it takes for fiberglass. With that in mind, what are pathogenic level masks? What is the size of the pathogens that are right? So in this case, if we're looking for the corona or the beer flu, if we're looking at the beer flu, what family is it from? We can determine that depending on the family that virus is from, you can determine what little virus or what is the size of the thing that's causing this. Then you determine if it's airborne or permeated through touch, or right, there's a variety of different levels that bacteria can pass, blah, 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 blah. The point is, the mask, the fabric, the manufacturing process that goes into pathogenic level mask is far more sophisticated than just wearing a mask like some Japanese person. Because you have to remember, like, when the Japanese person wears it, it's not for them to not get sick from other people, but it's so that they don't get other people sick. There's a very understanding the methodology and the philosophy behind why a Japanese person wears the mask, right? Why the sick person wears it and not everybody else is very important into understanding this. You just looking at that data, literally, you could get Japan, look at the past 20 years, because it's been a tradition there. Why doesn't it make sense? Like, how does it, like, I don't know. And this is coming from somebody who's just loosely manufactured cannabis concentrates, and that was just me learning about sifting bags, learning about the importance of wearing something over your face, and I would repeatedly get yelled at for trying to just put my shirt up and da 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 da. There's interesting issues, but moving on from the mask issue, because I really don't care about this.
You put something over your face.
Let me ask you.
It was so funny because Destiny, then he ends this portion of the debate with the mask, calling him a sheeple. Destiny is calling him the sheep. Fucking hilarious. Like, you couldn't write a better WWE script, in my opinion. You really couldn't. Like,
Okay. Let me ask a question. Sneako, if the government came out tomorrow and said everybody stop wearing it, are you going to do what the government says?
I was already not wearing it. I just would rather.
see what I mean? And this is what I call a smear campaign, because why would you ask that question? For Shneako, the mask, not wearing the mask isn't because the government told him. It's because he never wanted to wear it in the first place. And then they'll be like, oh, I breathe better and this and that. And like, this topic was...
Yeah, is it like, do I actually understand what's going on?
I'm not in a bubble.
If
I'm very clearly not in a bubble. I'm here talking to you right now. I debate people on a regular basis who disagree with me.
Okay. Well, here are two things that I do, and then your audience can take it or leave it. You can take it or leave it, whatever. Okay. The first question, the most important question is, what would it take to change your mind? That is the number one most important question. If you don't know what it would take to change your mind on any topic, then you're a sheep. What would it take to change your mind about?
That's a very interesting question, considering that I don't know if anybody knows who Destiny is, but this dude's basically the champion of the internet sphere of the leftist topic or debate. He's basically the champion of that side, right? He's, I wouldn't say the champion, because he does try to lean on being logically sound, but all of his rhetoric just caters to a very specific angle. Like, he will never talk negatively about,
Masks.
Well, that's because I trust the data. That's why
if I was sick right now, if I died, if I was like in the hospital because I had respiratory problems and all this nonsense, but all these people who got the V word are still like Biden got.
So that's it. Whether or not you get sick, whether or not you get sick is the only determining factor. But you just said yourself.
Whether or not, right? Notice how he defined what Sneako was saying, because that's not what Sneako said. Sneako said,
people that whether or not you get.
But all these people who got the V word are still like Biden got respiratory problems and all this nonsense.
And talking about respiratory problems, talking about, I don't know. I just feel like Shneako didn't actually properly, I don't even think that he properly knows any debates against this whole scamdemic that happened. So watching that was just a fucking train wreck. I actually want to get somewhere else.
Me entertaining people online if I'm streaming.
Crypto,
blah blah blah.
No, it's not. I just shot my. Oh God, I had Young Don on my stream.
Flashy shit and try to say, if you go and buy this, if you get that, if you've got this many women like you, shit that you can offer that other people are willing.
Between me and you, is full of complaints.
Right? Because if you were talking to people and you wanted to make and build real men, you'd be telling people either one, go to school, get a fucking education so you can get a real job, or two, at least.
That right there triggered me. Because in America, it's like, it doesn't make sense to go to school. You're literally pissed. Like, if you don't go to a very specialized school with very specialized professors in a very specialized field, school is the most fucking retarded thing you could do right now. Literally. I would say it's safe to say 60% of the diplomas, modern diplomas, don't actually get you anything. Unless, like I said, you have a very specialized field. But even then, you're only going to be as good as your professor, and you're only going to be good as the course being taught at whatever school you go to. So it always comes down to the same thing. If you don't go to the right school for the right subject, who the fuck is going to know how to do that? And here in America, it's a whole other issue when you get into looking at the streamline, like assembly line process that kids go through here in America. The moment you're in 12th grade, they sit you down in front of a computer, they get you to fill out FAFSA, and of course everybody's going to tell you, yeah, you should go to college. And it's just like, yeah, go to college, create more debt for the Federal Reserve, and then by the end of your 6 years, you're $150,000 in debt. And by and large, remember, this isn't men affecting this the most. It's actually the women, because by and large, women graduate far more than men do. So, if anyone really occurs like a debt or something very burdensome, you gotta, I don't know. And at least
go to and it gets tricked on clicking on it from a fucking not spamming a film fucking. That is literally the temptation of the devil. Flashing you like flashy shit and try to say if you.
Oh yeah. And then Destiny tries using Shneako. Shneako said, "Yeah, I believe in God, but I don't necessarily subscribe to one model of everything." Then Destiny's like, "Oh, I'm gonna use this moment to smear campaign you and fucking claim you a non-virtuous asshole because you do this or you do that and da da da." I'm like, watching this debate was more of a shit show. And what's even funnier is if you could look at the chat log that happened between these two, like all of Destiny's fans, like were not listening. I don't know. I would say both sides could fall into that category where they're not necessarily listening to each other's arguments. And I don't want to get into the 25 techniques of disinformationists and how it's fairly easy to control a crowd using just a few people in order to promote a singular message, in order to kind of dictate the flow of the conversation. It doesn't take much. All it takes is either way. I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna go there.
You go and buy this. If you get that, if you've got this many women like,
And he's in this portion he's talking about the men red pill stuff, about how like if you want to make better men, you need to show them more values. They need to this and that. And right now the reason why this is the new battlefield, like I said, they stole the red pill stuff and now they gave it to the men community. And by and large, I guess they're trying to psyop this whole subject into reality, because there is a lot of there's a lot of stuff that is understood between men and women that is left unspoken. And the only real people who kind of get to experience this are people who deal with a lot of people and get all of that experience quickly, which for men is usually the 20% of the best looking men. And then for women, it's primarily 60% of them. I'm getting these statistics from a lot of these red pill guys. So the reason why I say that is because you by and large, on average, 60% of the women population is attractive. And by and large, most women are only attracted to 20% of men. And that's not my statistic. That's just statistics that roam around in these circles, right? But because of that, you can assume that they deal with more people. They get approached more. They get to speak and practice these social skills a lot more. So there is this sort of like funnelment of experience in the social circles that only really gets explored by people who get those opportunities. So I would say that the science, well, human behavioral science on this perspective isn't necessarily mapped out that well, because who tests for this, right? Like, who would really test for this?
Talk to that guy and learn what he learned.
you don't spend any time on your,
Blah, blah.
because that's what you're talking about.
This argument is so fucking retarded.
Affect my message or what people think. Sure. Okay, we're the male Kim Kardashian. What do you want?
Oh yeah, this is my favorite part.
How are you going to have 20 spiritual women?
20 spiritual women.
Go from having 20 women through your 20s, and then at 26, 27, you're going to find like a woman that is spiritual, that is looking for the same things
No,
in life.
I
that
can
you
have
are gonna
20 spiritual women.
What does that mean?
20 spiritual
That was the funniest moment. Destiny
you think
was
that
like,
you can go from having
what?
20 women through your 20s, and then at 26, 27, you're going to...
Okay, and this is when he flipped the last card on Sneako. This is an argument that gets used by the men community towards the women community, which is you waste your early 20s, you wait until the end, and then you decide to settle down. And by and large, there's a lot of... It's kind of why I always say that men get psyoped and get stunted very differently than the women. And it's all dictated by the market. It's all dictated by what's profitable, how to make it the most profitable engine. And like in reality, by and large, the industry knows that men will stay infantile and will try to stimulate their brains to stay that way up until they're 25. They can't really control what happens after that, because at the age of 25, like me, you start wisening up and you start realizing like, yo, some of these behaviors aren't conducive, this and that. Like you start realizing that things aren't working out the way you want them to. And then you start asking, or at least I started asking myself, and then you start discovering the truth and you realize that you're like, there's these invisible threads that kind of dictate the flow of culture. And it's not, I'm not going to say it's entirely controlled, because if it was entirely controlled, Microsoft wouldn't be in the shitter that it is. And TikTok wouldn't necessarily be the #1 app. It would still be Facebook, because Facebook always bought out every single thing. I want to keep wearing the Trump hat, but I'll put that down because I don't know. The hat has been getting me weirded out every time I keep looking at myself. I'm like, wow, that's me wearing that hat. That's very controversial. Where was I? So yeah, Destiny, at this point in time, will start using the rhetoric towards him, where it's like, you're going to tell me that with your history, you're going to find somebody that you can settle down with at the end of all this? And it's just like, look, I get why you're making the argument, and you're just essentially flipping the argument. These men sphere stuff, they apply to the women, but it's kind of like, it's a sad reality, but I can't remember the quote, but it's like men get to choose. Women will settle in the sense that men will always get to choose who the ring goes on, while women will only be allowed the pick of the litter that is available to them. So there is a lot of that going on in this manosphere stuff. And Destiny is using the Monica Lewinsky tactics in the sense that he's getting all of these popular arguments and flipping them towards Shneako, all to smear campaign him into fitting the brand of enemy that has been sold to the American populace, right? Anti-mask, anti-science, anti-woman. Can't remember what other argument. I think there's another argument that anti-men, as in you're not actually advocating for men's health. And this is kind of a big issue, because this is kind of one of the things that's really, it's been a prevailing thing more recently than ever, where men's mental health issues they're getting put they have a lot more shine on them, but I don't know how to say this. Like, yes, men issues do deserve to be put on the forefront, because nobody ever talks about that perspective of things. But at the same time, it's being used to create this counter argument against feminism, and it's all fitting into like this WWE paradigm, which gets into one of the videos that I wanted. The first video that you can still see here at the bottom, which is, I still haven't fixed that.
Look at evidence against.
Dum, bum, 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 bum. Does that fix it? Yeah, that fixed it. Yeah, that fixed it. Perfect.
Lois Lerner, the former IRS employee accused in 2013 of targeting Tea Party groups over their political views. Lerner called to testify to Congress, but pleaded the Fifth.
So right now, the Democrats are trying to hire 89,000 more people to be IRS agents. And this is an example of an IRS agent that deliberately only targeted one side of the group. So to bring this back, all the way back to this lady, which was knowing the... Oh, wait, I took down the zoom. Yeah, here we go. Knowing how people are, knowing that you can depend that people are programmed the way that they are, you will always assume that they will make the decision that they're inclined to make because of their background, right? Like, oh, you're so-and-so and you have this kind of background. That means I can assume and tend to think that you are inclined for X, Y, and Z purely based on your background, right? This is like something cops, FBI agents, this is something that's taught in criminal law, right? This is a learned field, right? So when I look at Destiny, all he's really touting is all of the things that are learned behaviors, all of the things that come from trusted, authoritative sources, when the authority itself knows that people are conditioned in very specific ways. So it's kind of why I never, like, yes, men's health issues are a real thing, and women's issues are also a real thing. I just think that both of them get pointed to the wrong direction, and nothing ever gets pointed to the real root of the problem, which is that we have a corporatist oligarchical state that has gone tyrannical with subliminal and subconscious messaging through the use of actors, through the use of movies, through the use of themes, through the use of stories. They've permeated the entire culture, that you get situations like this, where you have Destiny, Mr. Agent Smith 34, soy boy galore, going after Shneako because he's decided to go against all of the programming. And Shneako doesn't, right? Shneako, I wouldn't suggest he fits any of the normal paradigms of thoughts. Because, like, if you ask him if he hates women, he'll say yes. Like, this dude, wait, the Asian guy, he'll actually say in front of the camera, yes, I hate women. And his argument behind it is, they all say the same shit. They all exhibit the same behaviors. They all fall in line to the same learned, conditioned behaviors. And when it's like that, I'm like, damn, dude, like, you sound like me when I was 20, right? Because it was around that time that I figured out that there's like this level of like social interaction game that you can play that I've only ever heard verbalized by one person. And yes, he's a pickup artist. But something I learned in college very easily was, as long as you play along, everybody has a good time. As long as you play along, everybody has a good time. Regardless if it was a party, a hangout, going to the beach, or doing XYZ. As long as you played the part, the other people would be sold on whatever you were giving them. And it would create this like false perception of fun for everybody else. And I think that's where a lot of the young people get caught up in, is in the facade of fun that was created as a perception through whatever media they ingested. And, you know, the media that they ingest is to some degree understood that boys will gravitate towards one side of things and girls will gravitate toward another side of things. So it doesn't really make sense for me to say that they'll sell boys things, but they'll sell girls a social experience. And I don't know if that works out, because that doesn't necessarily work out. Because like I was the kind of kid that had a bunch of dolls and made up stories in my head, so it doesn't necessarily work out that way.
I'm gonna find like a woman.
More shots. We're gonna have a lockdown for months.
When I'm going out into the world or when I'm talking to people, I'm trying to think, what makes you a good person? What makes you have virtue? How do you cut like a solid character inside of yourself when you're carving out your virtues, right? I'm not thinking like, do I need another vaccine? Should I wear the mask? These are the farthest fucking thoughts of my mind.
And he's talking about virtue signaling, right? He's talking about how some people, not all, you know, like this actually comes from more like teachers' pets. This comes more from the perspective of people that get an enjoyment of doing what is required of them. But as you can see,
I'm not obsessing over what the last thing Alex Jones said, or what the last TikToker said, or what's trending on Twitter, right? There's more to life than that. You have.
Yeah, there's more to life than wasting your time looking at life through a different lens, man. The government already does all our thinking for us. Yeah, like, you should just trust the science, man. There's a lot of people that put their time, work, effort, blood, sweat, and tears into all of this research so that we get to live better lives. Yeah.
You have to understand that.
Okay.
If masks are at the forefront of your mind, then the government is poisoning you more than
That
anybody
was
that
the
steps
first
on a
thing you
bus
asked,
with a
bro.
mask on.
You started up the conversation with masks when you talked about spirituality. A woman can only.
You can tell, like, at this point, it's just Destiny yelling. And he'll always try to find a way to go back to conspiracy theories. And he'll always try to, like, form all these arguments of, like, oh, you're just believing non-authoritative sources. Veiling his speech, right? He's essentially saying that, but through a variety of other words and through stringing along sentences, he's just basically saying, like, I can't trust what you're saying because what you're saying, you can't quote to me anybody else who's said anything better than the authoritative sources I have, right? And looking at Destiny, he would probably lose an argument to anybody who understands immune systems, to anybody who understands the manufacturing process of a mask, to anybody who understands fasting as a whole, to anybody who understands the history, the historical, and keep in mind, the historical science behind the manufacturing of medicine. Once you understand that, you learn the differences between things that are synthesized and things that are manufactured using natural ingredients. But again, that's the thing, right? This is just WWE. This is meant for entertainment purposes. It's not really meant for right, if you go for that sort of content, you typically will end up in places like I hang out, where you're listening to like old boomers talk like in a very slow voice, and they're presenting their information with very clear and concise data, making sure that you follow along through a timely process. Like sometimes I want to lose my mind, but thank the Lord for the multiplier in the speed. What do you call that? Multiplier in the speed. No, the what do you call this button? The playback speed. Oh. Sometimes I do wonder, like, how stupid I am. Either way.
They get pregnant once in a year. That's why women are wired to be with one man. But a man is wired to spread your seed. So you can be with as many women as possible, and it doesn't change how you love a woman. It doesn't matter.
I would encourage you. I don't want to.
They're talking about
Netflix every night with
genes, DNA, things that I'm like whatever about because I think the science is
Christian
tinged.
or Islam aren't interested in being one of 20 or one of 30.
And this was so interesting, right? Like I honestly believe that the only reason this debate exists is because that person you just heard, his name is Abba. He's from Abba and Preach. It's like a reaction channel. But Shneako had a conversation with Abba, and he completely destroyed Abba because he brought up the things I like to talk about, which is how, to some degree, human behavior has been mapped out as a science. They clearly know how to incentivize us as a people, and they clearly know how to like gear us towards achieving different things in our lives. And the only real person who's ever actually, I think I did the video for that, right, where Shneako fucking goes off on him. Actually, I think I did do a video on that.
And you do go over to the stuff that you do want. The people that are in that area that have been working at it since they're 20, they're not going to want to have anything to do with you. You're going to be 10 years behind every person that you want to associate with.
I don't know why you get so mad about my lifestyle, bro. Do
I'm
what
not.
you want
Hold
to
on.
do.
I'm not mad about your lifestyle.
Actually, this is
might be your ultimate goal. You can't say that you have goal A when you spend your entire life getting things from goal B. You can't just switch up in the middle like that. You're not building towards anything. You're going to crash into a wall. By the time you hit 30, you're going to realize you spent your entire life building towards something that you don't even want. And by the time you do go over to the stuff that you do want, the people that are in that area that have been working at it since they're 20, they're not going to want to have anything to do with you.
What he's saying there is, you wasted your early 20s, and by the time you're 30 and you want a serious relationship, everybody who has what did he say?
You do want the people that are in that area that have been working at it since they're 20, they're not going to want to have anything to do with you.
Yeah, they're right. Essentially, the dating pool, the same dating pool who worked their butts off all the way to their 30s, are not going to want Shneako because he spent all of his early 20s messing around with whatever lifestyle he's living.
You're going to be 10 years behind every person that you want to associate with.
I don't know why you get so mad about my lifestyle, bro. Do
I'm
what
not.
you want
Hold
to
on.
do.
I'm not.
Because the reason why he says, why are you so mad at my lifestyle, and why he said the number 24 is because by and large, a lot of this manosphere, a lot of this man red pill stuff content, they'll say that men who reach, what is it? Men have to earn, women are just are, something like that. Where men have to earn their value, they have to work towards their value, they have to build something by the time they're 30. And usually by the time they're 30, they'll literally encounter somebody much younger than them and they'll marry them because it's just the dynamic that works out that way, right? Because a 30-year-old man in modern times does not want to date another 30-year-old woman, primarily because think of the culture. Think of what the dating culture has been like. Nobody likes to think about this, but I think about it in terms of statistics and logic, in the sense of, if it's true that there are anywhere from 10 to 20% of men that are the most chaste, as in they're getting pursued the most because of X, Y, or Z reason, that means there's a disproportionate want. So the competition for attaining these men is much harder. But at the same time, if we look at, right, I have 4 older sisters. I have 4 older sisters. You want to know how many times I saw them heartbroken? Like, you want to know how many times I saw them cry over just stupid fucking dudes? Plenty of times to just learn that they were going after people out of their league. Like, they were clearly dating dudes that were like Prince Charmings or like whatever equivalent that is. Like, I don't know. So I grew a very heavy stigma against these sort of behaviors, especially because who my dad was and this and that, right? And me being fat and like, there's a plethora of issues, right? So I saw this play out from two different perspectives, where I saw how my sisters dealt with the turmoil, but then I also saw how I was treated overall by just people in general, because, you know, being fat, nobody really likes to deal with you. So I watched two different perspectives of the social paradigm, and fully acknowledging what, like, I know what pretty privilege is. I've seen that shit work out in my face, like, day in and day out. Like, I don't even want to tell that story.
Mad about your lifestyle.
If you want like a nice wholesome relationship with my wife, then go ahead. But I want 10, and I know a lot of people watch my chat want 10.
There's not enough women in the world for every guy.
I watch his channel, but I do not want 10 women. You know how much headache that would be? You know how much fucking bullshit that would be? With Western women?
I think it triggers you because
why do you keep saying I'm triggered? I'm perfectly fine in my life. I'm not triggered at all right now. If you want to say that I'm triggered, I'm not triggered about your life. What I'm triggered is that you are selling OnlyFans for men. You are leading people down the same spiritually empty road, down the same spiritually empty road that Kim Kardashian is taking women down. That's what you're doing.
You got him. Okay. I think that the fact that you're getting so triggered about like the alpha male stuff that you see on Instagram and TikTok is because deep down, every man kind of knows that like this is natural, and you've given up on that. You've given up and you've trusted the government. You listen to what you're told. You believe. You say words like toxic for other men. You got programmed, and so I always see it for people like you in the comment section too and in the chat. Like, toxic? And it's like the reason you're getting heated and triggered is because I'm tapping into something that's inherent. This is stuff that men, this biological for men. Fucking a lot of women, taking as much as we possibly can, being the best version of ourselves, that's natural for men. And you hear it, and at some point you gave up on that and decided to.
I think Shneako went a little too far at this point. But it does come across that way, right? If I was in the debate and if I got yelled at as much as this fool did by Destiny, I would have lost my fucking mind. Just because it's like, I don't like people taking my words and misconstruing them and then attaining a different conclusion from what I say. That shit irks me so much that I catch it like that. Like, I'm immediately aware of it because I've been doing this debate shit. I've been doing it on Discord since 2018. Like, I loved being in the heat of the fire just because it was the only way. Like, right, if you're going to practice something and you want to get good at it really quickly, just throw yourself in it. Like, that's how I got good at Counter-Strike, but that's a whole other conversation. Do I need this? No, I don't. Because now the next thing that I'm going to play is, where is it? Oh, yeah. Here's Shneako. The only reason I'm going to play this is because this is Eddie Bravo. Oh, well.
Right now, all the top of the loony left, the top of the loony left, the top of them, they're all going to go down for some shit. It's not just Hunter Biden. It's not just Hunter Biden. It's Pelosi. They want, Eddie? They want world wars. They want, you know what happened? Remember 9/11. The day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld makes an announcement that the Pentagon is missing $2.3 trillion.
Right.
Guess what? There was going to be a lot of investigations going on. People were going to go down for that. But guess what? 9/11 happens and no one brings it up. So if we have a world war right.
Okay, he's not mentioning that when $2.3 trillion were missing from the Pentagon budget, there was an office that was investigating all of where that money went. And guess what happened to that office? That was the office that blew up during when the Pentagon got hit. And the only office that got really damaged was the office that was investigating where all that missing money went. And it's kind of why I look at cryptocurrency as a, like, yes, as much as it could be used to enslave you, it could also be used to track where all of the money is going. Like, people don't find it to being an issue that the system that uses money transfers is all centrally owned by one company, a singular company, and everybody's okay with that. Oh yeah, I like the dollar. I like physical money, especially under the control of one single entity. And it's just like cryptocurrency, yeah, it comes with its drawbacks, but You know what I mean? If people were wiser with coding and programming and they were more involved with their government, I don't know. I think the world is going to conclude in a far different way.
Right now, those people won't go to prison. What would you rather go? You rather go to prison or World War? Being famous was the greatest thing ever. And now being famous, it's not so great. It's like you're just a target, you know? It's like being...
It depends. You have a voice. The thing is, if you can take the heat. Like, look
I'm
at
talking about target. I mean,
really
over and over.
What, the news?
And over these days. Look at the news actor or a rock star. You're a target. I mean, look at the news these days. Look at the news. Look what they're saying.
But who's watching
over
that,
and
Eddie?
over? Nobody.
No one's
but
really
over and over.
What, the news?
Over and over.
And this is why Shneako became a problem, because he'll like watching conspiracy stuff with his Twitch audience, and he'll talk about it in an extensive format. And they don't allow that to just anybody on Twitch. Like, you cannot just have a conspiracy show on Twitch. Like, especially when you get too close to the rhetoric. Because Twitch has its own, what I call, the old guard, right? I would say Destiny is one of the main commanders of that old guard, because he's the one he's the most well-spoken, and he knows when to retreat on certain arguments, because he knows that the data will be used against him so badly that... Right, you use credibility against whatever Machiavellian bullshit they play.
Was a Russian spy. They said Russian
agent.
Yeah. Look at the people in the chat. And people call you crazy.
They killed for that shit. They gave him the worst shit. They gave him Russia.
Look at the people in the chat. Eddie Bravo really on crack, not gonna lie. Same thing. As soon as you start talking about this thing, the same amount of people call you on drugs. Same people call you crazy. But maybe you're crazy for being a bot and for not questioning this stuff. Maybe.
Yep. Yep, that's the way I see it. Let's see what else. I'm already 46 minutes in. I should probably just quit now, but yeah, part of me stopped caring. Where is it? Is it this one? Yeah.
Did you go to any parties? That's not speculation.
I didn't.
Any?
No.
Yeah, she definitely went to a party. And it's this bold-faced, two-sided system where the media will portray one thing, but our cell phones, all the shit we upload online, will tell a completely different story. Friends, in these harsh economic times, it is important to remember that one 5G antenna contains 11 pounds of copper and 1 pound of platinum. Very interesting. Very interesting facts to know. You know, here at the Ramirez Show, we learn very interesting facts. Oscar Wilde. He wrote kind of one of my all-time favorite books, The Portrait of Dorian Gray. I have my copy. A funny story about this copy. My friend gave it to me. Shout out to Hector. Because he lost my original copy of the Dorian Gray. Like, my copy was like from 70-something. But he's like, dude, I'm so sorry. And he got me like a much newer, much more flowery version of The Picture of Dorian Gray. Great book. It's one of my favorites because it was one of the only books that taught me a lesson about regrets and how like they can linger. Either way, the fact is that the public have an insatiable curiosity to know everything except what is worth knowing. Right? They want to know about everything else. It reminds me of that clip where they asked this girl like, "Oh, how many stars are on the flag?" But the moment that they ask her, "Oh, can you name the Kardashians?" she names every single one of them. And I'm just like, big wow, dude. Big wow. Oh yeah, here's actually one of the things I wanted to show.
Once you know this, you will never be able to unsee it. This is how every politician and group manipulates you. It's common enemy politics, and here's the formula. First, name an enemy. A country, a political party, immigrants, anti-vaxxers. They need an enemy and a gulf between you and them, a them that is noticeably different from you. Then produce a narrative of an attack by them on you. They're destroying our industries. They're destroying our democracy. They're taking our jobs. They're spreading disease. Then offer a solution to the problem. Vote for them, donate to them, keep them in power. In exchange, they will protect you because no one else will. They'll say the enemy despises you, but give them your loyalty, your money, and your minds.
You know, one of the popular things that I remember seeing this tactic be used on was Zionist. Like, there was so much subtle subliminal messaging across the board with all these so-called right-wing activists like Don Bongino, Biden, I can't remember who else, but like they were people that were a part of, you know, the image of being a part of the right wing, and all of them would look at the camera and be like, I'm a proud Zionist. I believe in Israel. Yeah, I stand with Zionist. And I'm just like looking at them like, y'all really feeding into this, aren't you? Because this was at a time where online communities were going wild against each other. They were like, oh, you're an Israeli show. You're an Israeli show. This and that. And where did that whole argument end? It ended with calling Trump Zion Don. And where did that whole argument go? Nowhere. It went in the fucking trash where it belonged. It gets me always so triggered because like the people that I saw this spout this the most were the fucking idiots that were calling themselves, ooh, I'm based, I'm smart, this and that. And I'm just like, yeah, very intelligent. I know this shouldn't probably trigger me, but it's just like, it does, because I had personal friends literally believe in this fucking garbage. And like, if anybody was to blame for there not being a younger population in these voting centers, it was that fucking rhetoric. Because when you look at it, it's just like, dude, they're just the note takers. They're just the scribes of modern day. Like, they're not the oligarchs. They're not the aristocrats writing the policies. They're not the ones who hold any meaningful amount of capacity of power in this fucking country. They got lobbyist groups. And those lobbyist groups don't work if they don't have fucking trauma land over there in the Middle East for all of the Americans to go over there, get traumatized, come back over here, and they're like, here's our money. I get really angry at this because it's like, that spell is so large. It's like, yeah, good luck talking to a Christian and trying to tell them about that agenda.
I'm sure Ron Paul's What If speech has made its proper rounds of circulation on the internet, but just in case you haven't heard it, I'm going to play it for you.
I have a few questions for my colleagues. What if our foreign policy of the past century is deeply flawed and has not served our national security interests? What if we wake up one day and realize that the terrorist threat is a predictable consequence of our meddling in the affairs of others?
I wanted to stop here. I wanted to show that part because it's like, no. After doing the investigation, this whole thing with the pipeline in Syria is not a brand new fucking thing. Just looking at the Franco-Syrian war, just as lightly as I did, was, oh, having a pipeline for Europe through Syria was always a thing, and they've been trying this for 100 years, and we're still in the same location? Wow. Big wow.
And has nothing to do with us being free and prosperous. What if propping up repressive regimes in the Middle East endangers both the United States and Israel? What if occupying countries like Iraq and Afghanistan and bombing Pakistan is directly related to the hatred directed toward us?
This reminds me of a song by Immortal Technique 116. Very interesting number. Immortal Technique, where he talks about how like the demon that was created in the Middle East was out of our own creation. Like, we did that. Like, nobody else did. And you know what I mean? Like, you essentially do so much evil to one group of people that the moment they see your people, they think of you as the enemy. So when I look at what's going on in Europe with all of the displacements of all of these Middle Eastern men going into Europe, I'm like, are you surprised that the people that grew to hate whites are not going to carry some of that resentment towards their culture, towards Westernism, towards... Because when you look at because the way I still see it, if you look at a 15-year-old to a 25-year-old, they're still ignorant. They, you know what I mean? Like, they're the ones that'll say, down with the government. We don't trust technology companies spying on us, but they own an Apple iPhone. They'll have every single social media platform on their phone. They'll have an account with every single one of them without fully understanding that their phone is already listening to them. Everything that gets sold to them is, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just... I just go a little too deep. Let me just keep rolling through the Telegram to make sure that I'm not missing anything I wanted to mention. Don't care about flat Earth. Oh yeah, this was a very creepy interview. The child predator basically gets asked like, what traits do you look for in some of your victims? And one of them was a lack of religion. That was kind of crazy to me. Oh, and here it is, the left. Is it strange that my interests align with the media, big tech, big government, the wealthy elite, and big pharma? Nah, that's a coincidence. I'm anti-establishment. Dude, I remember one of my high schools, when I worked as a teacher assistant at a high school, and one of the students that would frequently visit me for advice, I remember when he went to college, he was telling me, yeah, I'm a part of the resistance, man. Are you proud of me? And I looked at him and I'm like, let me guess, is it your school club that pays for all of your trips? And he's like, yeah, how did you know? You're not a part of the resistance. You are literally the anti-resistance. He looked at me with so much disbelief that I could see him hate me and then be like, oh, I bet you're a Trumper. And I'm like, dude, the federal government allocated a budget for you. Your club money is literally getting cashed out to you and your members to go to all these protests, to all your signs, this and that. And he didn't want to hear it. Meanwhile, he was still going to every single one of those, fully being funded. I don't even know. Like, that to me was insane. Yeah, here we have the RAP Act. Introduced by two House Democrats, Georgia Hank Johnson and New York Jamal Bowman, seek to limit lyrics from being used as evidence in criminal and civil trials. Shout out to Bobby Schumer. That dude literally outed himself so badly that he went to prison for quite some while. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about social paradigms, primarily through Shneako and Destiny, because these two dudes are currently in the minds of men, because Shneako is currently representing men's rights very loosely, because Shneako is a very fiery individual. I would say some extremist shit like that people are just playing out predictable programming, but at the same time, not to the degree that this fool will do it, because this fool will straight up look at a female's face and be like, you are just like every other female I've ever dealt with. And it's just like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Very interesting. See if I can listen to anything else.
Believe in the left.
Don't do it. Just walk away from it. Fuck it. Who cares? That's what you were describing.
And what happens though? Hold on. Let me one more point. Destiny turned 18 and then gave up on his balls, and then now you're mad and you don't even know.
You don't even know my background to say that. You have no idea who I am or what I've done.
I know who you vote for. I know what you trust.
Let's stay out of the personal.
I mean, we can get personal if you want. It's just the worst argument to have.
No, Shneako, your argument is essentially that basically you could.
Notice how they ignored that. He said, I know what you vote for. I know what your interests are. I know where your thought process is going to lean. And the people at the bottom who, like, when I think about it, who I went to high school with, who I went to college with, every single time that I ever walked into a class, there was a degree of knowledge that I could use to myself. Because I moved a lot of places, right? I lived in LA. I lived in Texas. I lived in New York. I lived in Mexico. And I visited Philadelphia, Arizona. Like, right, I've seen enough of the U.S. to know that there are very different communication styles, that there's a variety of different accents, there's a variety of different behaviors that are demonstrated between people. Like, California is actually the most interesting one, right? Because if you go to Northern California, if you go to San Francisco and you go to LA, you get a very different experience. But that doesn't apply anymore, actually, because they're both homeless shelters now. But you get into this whole aspect of like, yeah, you can map people out. Like, we all watch the same television. We all watch the same media. We all ingested the same music. And that only really applies to like when you're in the United States, right? If you're in Europe, you might have different artists that are on the top 50 Billboard, right? Like, I remember one of my favorite low-key artists here in the States, his name was Wax, W-A-X. He was a rapper. But for whatever reason, that dude in Europe blew up. Like some random Latino cat blew up over there in Europe because my guess is they were judging him on his looks and they were like, oh, you look like a native from over here, so we're just going to accept you. And very interesting to see that kind of behavior. And to a large degree, sociology is the science of studying groups of people. So, like, also, the only thing I see here is Shneako is basically applying all of his experience with with all the people that he dealt with, and applying it with just unspoken terms that he hasn't learned yet from sociology. And the reason why I can assume he's met a lot of people is because he used to work for Mr. Beast. He had his own YouTube channel. I don't know Shneako. I also don't know Destiny, but at the same time, I know enough of them for at least Shneako when he blew up, and Destiny. I've hated this fucking asshole since I think I met him on Politics. Like, there's a Discord server called Politics. I think I've met him on there, and I've debated against him. But I'm not. He just sounded like him. I'm not gonna say that it was him.
You can do what you want, and that you assume your responsibilities. Correct?
Yeah.
Obligations to your family and to your community that are going to overrule things that you want to do. A man that does whatever he wants to do, that's a weak man's idea of a strong man. It's a guy that walks out on anything, doesn't give a fuck about anybody, and does whatever the fuck he wants because he's only in the selfish pursuit of his own happiness. This is a guy that's never going to have a real wife. He's never going to have real friends or family because everybody's going to look at that dude as a teenager that's going to drop everything and quit when life gets too hard.
I think guys like you,
all the
maybe
tests,
guys like just
all
like
the
you.
tests of being a real man are about doing the things that you don't want to do when you most don't want to do them. Everybody that is an adult that has integrity will tell you that.
If it's righteous, but a lot of the stuff that you think are like doing stuff you don't want to do, like putting on a mask or like wearing a seatbelt and then injecting another whatever.
Yeah, putting on a mask and wearing a seatbelt. These are the everyday things. These are the everyday things.
That's what you're told by the government and by the higher ups as a real man. Your idea of a real man is brainwashed. You're saying words like toxic to me.
Yeah, I'm saying words like
And I don't know. What do we like? I don't know what other people believe, what a man is and what isn't. But at the same time, it's like, are we going to look at what modern man has become? And are we going to look at that behavior and call that a man? Like, I look at all the behaviors I exhibited just 3 years ago. I detest all of that. I don't know. I don't know. Like, there was a point in time where I had to realize myself that all of the advice that my sisters ever gave me for dating and this and that was a lie. None of it ever worked. Like, I eventually ran to that point where every single piece of advice I was ever given about females was wrong. None of it was real. And then by the time I met my narcissistic ex and by the time I dealt with all that bullshit, like, I quickly realized that, right? It was like, it just destroyed my entire paradigm of what the opposite sex is. And then knowing how modern apps and the cell phone has just completely deteriorated any meaningful semblance of conversation between men and women. And just to see what, right? It's not a dating culture anymore. It's a hookup culture, right? Like, most people don't even know what dating is or proper dating is or proper courtmanship or any of this bullshit. Now it's just this weird amalgamation that just ends up at hooking up at the end of all of it. And the reason why it's like this is because someone has to set the tone. Someone sets the tone for the dating scene. Who that is, I don't know. I've never been, right? Because the way I look at it is, when I grew up, between the age of me growing up to the age of 27, I was a fat fuck all of my life. I joined every single sports club. I was always friends with better looking people. I know what it feels like to be rejected purely on what I look like. 100% of the time. I'm used to it. Like, it's like whatever. But at the same time, I would notice that there was something called pretty privilege, where one of the dudes in the club got more play than everybody else purely based on the way he looked. Not on the way he acted, because there were a variety of instances where I saw really good looking dudes get the chick better and do all this, but never be able to fully successfully move it to something permanent. So I've seen a variety of different instances of shit like this that I'm like, I don't know. There's clearly some form of science behind, like, how men and women interact, how men and men interact, and how women and women interact, but no one's having this conversation at all. They'd rather leave us like just blind, stupid, and ignorant when it all comes down to it. I keep getting bit.
Saying words like toxic to you because when you're
my life,
I'm a toxic male. I don't know what it means to have a proper anything.
Have an idea of God. You don't have a relationship with God. You have a word that you throw around to try to sneak some of your ideas in under. Because
I like
following,
ideas
hold
from
on, wait, let me
religions.
finish. Let me finish. This is important.
It's important. I gotta shit on you intellectually because I know you can't actually debate properly. Like literally, what this whole thing turns out to be. It's hilarious. It's hilarious because Destiny thinks he's winning, when in reality it's just like, no, dude. I think you're just mad because I'm pretty sure you've spent over 50 hours listening to all of this manosphere shit, and you clearly can recognize that all of these dudes would consider you a simp. And I think that's what he's kind of low-key mad about. And the reason why I say that is because if you've looked at his dating history, and if... I don't even want to go there, because I think that's just too disparaging. It's just... some of these high-value men would not make the same decisions Destiny would. And it's just like, it is what it is. Some men would rather deal with bullshit. Other men just don't deal with bullshit. I don't know. At least... I'll say that. I don't give a fuck. Like, parts of my patience have been tested. What? Because I hate listening to Destiny's voice.
Successful man is a guy that can buy houses, has a lot of women, and can get cars.
That can do
and you
whatever
said the same thing to
has
Abba.
the capability to do whatever he wants to do. That's a real man who's not controlled by anybody. That's what I said.
So I just want to.
Okay, I'm cooling down. Okay, sorry.
Okay, you're getting a little triggered, Destiny.
I'm not triggered at all, but I'm being really hard on you.
You get a little triggered, bro.
Earlier, I caught a stray shot because I think you guys were talking, and you were like, I was telling Abba that I don't subscribe to the idea that everyone can be rich, but that anyone can be rich. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So your estimation, Sneako, is not that everyone can be rich.
At this point, they're just conflating issues. I can't believe I played this without the thing on the screen. Either way, I'm going to end the stream here. My name is Ramirez. And yeah. Peace. Sayonara, arewa, whatever word.